Okay, so officially welcome to you all. I am stoked that you are here. Looks like we have people across the United States right now, as well as the UK, as well as Australia. And I know that for some of you it's very late, and for some of you it's very early. So I appreciate you guys just diving onto this program and showing up. I love doing sessions like this at this time of year because it's a perfect time to be able to look ahead to 2025 and to look back at 2024 and say, okay, like what was good, what was maybe not so good about the previous year, and what do we want to create or want to have happen in the coming year, in 2025, in the new year, the fresh year. Thank you for being here. It is so fun for me because while most of you know me from trading, I was thinking about that this just in this last month as I've been thinking, 2024, moving into the new year. I'm like, that's so funny that a lot of these folks, through the Daily Rage showed up because of trading, but really in my life and my career, that's like a teensy, teensy tiny portion of my life and my work. And what is a much, much bigger proportion of my life and work is coaching. I'm going on it'll be 18 years this coming spring that I have been coaching. So that is like my main thing. And when I get to do stuff like this that combines the two together, it's just a lot of fun. So again, thank you for participating and for being here. I appreciate you more than I could even say, more than you know. Let's start here. Let's start with this idea of mental fitness. And it might not be what you think because a lot of traders show up and they're like, well, I just need to know the best setups, or I need to know the best time to trade, or I need to know like what to trade. What is the best futures market to trade, or what is the best stock to trade, or, what is the best, fill in any blank like Mad Libs. Just put anything in that blank. And, a lot of traders are like, well, tell me what is the best thing? And really, yeah, sure, there could be some better than, let's say. There is no best, but there could be, better times to trade in a day or better things to trade in any given time, depending on what the markets are doing. But the thing that we can always have control over, maybe not total control, but at least that will play a huge, huge, huge impact and influence in our ability to have success or not, is our mental fitness. So mental fitness is everything. We're going to go through different aspects of life, all right? And I want you to take note of things, especially if there's something like that your initial reaction to what I'm saying is like that doesn't matter, or I don't need to worry about that, or whatever. That's probably the one that you need the most, okay? Like, let's just be clear about that. Anything that you have an irritation toward, or anything that you have a like that's not my issue type of reaction to, it often is our ego just trying to like protect us and defend us and like keep itself safe and alive. So I want you to explore that aspect, maybe even deeper than some of the other aspects. Okay, so with that, we first and foremost let's go into like physical brain health. So much of that comes down to your stress level and sleep. So, stress and sleep, these two S's are absolutely essential for another S, success in trading. Because when you are not sleeping, your brain does not function as well as it possibly can. Also, let's talk about stress. Stress, and this could be stress in the moment when you are trading and like freaking out about what the price action is doing, but it's also overall stress, right? It's life, it's relationships, it's your financial life, it's, how are things going in your body? Maybe you're stressed about a health challenge that you have. Stress can come from all different aspects of life, and we can, to an extent, mitigate it. Because yes, there will be things that happen in life. Maybe, we get some illness, or maybe something happens to somebody that we love, or maybe, whatever. The car breaks down and we're like, crap, like we need X amount of dollars to just fix the car. Whatever the situation is, like all of that stuff is life. Life happens. We all know that. Some things are great, some things are not so great. However, we absolutely can focus in on not reacting in like the worst possible way for our bodies and for our mindset. You might want to focus on your breathing because that is one of the easiest ways to signal to your body, hey, let's get out of this stress based response that we're in right now and bring it back down to like, okay, like we're okay. And yeah, there might be a storm going on around us. There might be chaos going around us. There might be whatever going on around you. And yet we can always have the control to like bring it down. I have seen through my work with Heart Intelligence and the Heart Math Institute and like all of these things, when I have people at live events, I can show them so easily because I hook them up to the little, indications and testers and machines, and then they can see their own stress and see how different things change that stress or can limit that stress. So, what happens when we are stressed out? And this, again, is about anything, whether it's the markets, the kids, the whatever, your future. When you can do that, what that does is that lowers cortisol levels. Cortisol is the stress hormone that is often circulating through our body. When we have stress at a chronic level, that causes things like major illnesses. So we also don't want that in addition to, not wanting to be freaked out when we're actually trading. So there's a billion reasons why to manage your stress and how to mitigate that. When we are trading, if we have just a buildup of cortisol, that literally cuts off the messaging from like the best parts of decision making in our brains. So the more stressed we are, the worse the decisions that we will make. And when we're in the market, I mean, and you guys know better than any others, is like you've seen me trade. A lot of my trading is like real quick and reactive, I guess, in a good way, not like crazy reactive, but I'm reacting to the markets and what the market is showing me. And I'm not always, of course, but maybe often able to make a relatively decent decision because I have regulated my state, my state of being, my state of my body, my state of mind at that time. It's super important to be able to do that. So that is one aspect of mental fitness. Another, and some of you I already know will maybe not like to hear this, but it's still true, is it also has to do with what you're putting into your body by way of food and drink. The more things that cause inflammation that you are eating and drinking, the worse off your brain will be for it. Now, does that mean you always have to be perfect and never have, what I would call like a cheat meal or a cheat day? No, like it doesn't mean that at all. It's totally fine to, occasionally like have dessert or whatever, but things that do cause inflammation, like we have to be aware of that. We have to understand that that does negatively impact the brain. So inflammatory things that cause inflammation, excuse me, are sugar, alcohol, just chemical, toxic stuff that is in, I know that you're not all in the United States, but here in the US, like our food system in general is terrible. I don't subscribe to a particular diet. I'm not like, no, you have to be a vegan or you have to be a carnivore or whatever. Like, I don't care. I eat all that stuff, but I do like to choose clean choices because I know that when I don't, that's impacting my brain. And when I impact my brain negatively, that impacts my trading negatively. So there's so many different layers of like, okay, if we have this goal that is about trading, well, how can we best set ourselves up to achieve that goal and like actually get there? Well, there's a billion different things that we can do to work toward that on, or I should say, in various aspects of our lives. So, risk management. Risk management is not a blanket conversation of like, hey, this is how everybody should do it. There are huge, huge differences in personality types around risk. And I'll give you an example. One of my besties, who many of you know, Hubert Centers, is like pretty much the opposite from me on risk. So anytime he and I talk about risk, like I just start laughing because I'm like, that's not at all how I think about it. For him, he is much, much, much more conservative in his risk. Now, he might be able to put on more risk based on account size. So there's like two things going on here. There's the risk personality, and then there's the actual math. There's the numbers. So like he has a boatload more money than I have. So he may be able to put on a ton more risk in terms of actual dollar amount. But I have a much stronger risk aspect in my life than he does. He plays things very conservatively. And if you don't know what your like risk profile is for yourself, I suggest that you look at other areas of your life. I can just look across my life. Like I am very willing to try new things. I'm very willing to put myself out there into even sometimes uncomfortable or uncertain situations. And I don't know necessarily like where that came from. And it certainly can be developed. I will tell you that if you want to like develop yourself in that area. But just for understanding where you're at now, look at your life. You know, do you generally take risks in life, or are you generally more conservative? And there, just to be clear, there isn't like a better way to do it. Wherever you're at, it's all good, but make sure you are understanding yourself first and foremost so that you can make the best risk management plan for you and focus on those two things. You yourself as a person in terms of risk, what are you actually comfortable with? And again, don't think that you need to be something that like you're not, because like I said, they both can be very successful in terms of how you're managing your trades, but you have to do it the way that fits you. You can't like necessarily read someone else's trading plan and just be like, okay, I'm going to implement that exactly, because you're not them, right? You don't have the same beliefs as them. You don't have the same understandings as them. You don't have the same experience as them. And yeah, you can glean from that. We can certainly learn from other people, but we can't just assume, oh, I'm just going to do it exactly like that person, because you're not that person. So, first, foremost, understand yourself, know thyself, as they say, and then take a look at just pure numbers. It doesn't really matter what your trading plan is, just know what it is, like have a plan, and then do that day after day after day after day. What does keep me very, very, very interested in the markets is that, yeah, I might be doing the same thing on a day in and day out basis, but nearly every day is different on the side of the markets. So that's what allows me to just stay inspired and stay like committed to this whole thing and just interested and intrigued and excited about it, curious about it. Like, what are we going to do today? Are we going to have slop and chop? Or are we going to trend and go some direction? And, you know, who knows? It is literally a different game to play every day. The taking profits too early game comes from a potential, and I'm going to keep this, you know, fairly general so that it may be applicable to all of you, but it can come from a lack of trust. And there's a couple things that any of you might be lacking in trust about. First and foremost, you have to trust yourself to trade your plan, right? It's very common, and I speak from experience because I've done this a billion times. I'll have like I have my plan in place in my mind, like, okay, this is what I'm going to do today. And then whatever happens in the market, and I decide, no, like now I'm going to trade 5 lots. It's like, what? That was not in the plan. Like, where did that come from? Now, I say I speak from experience because done it so many times. Now, I would say these days I would do that less, but certainly can still show up. And suddenly, like, you're doing something that is not in the plan. So, first and foremost, it's like honoring yourself enough to say, I trust myself to follow this plan. And sometimes that's even like just an affirmation that you could use in the mornings, writing that out or stating that out loud to yourself. I trust myself to follow my plan. And all that is not necessarily like magical woo woo, whatever. It's just a reminder to our brain of like, we actually do have a plan in place. And I am going to trust myself to follow said plan and see what happens. What often creates like that not following the plan is where we have a hold on some outcome. We're having a tight grasp on something that we want to happen. And this is what I was doing for a long time when I initially, and this, some of you who have been around the Daily Rage like since the beginning, you've seen this progression with me, is that when I first was like, oh, or I even did it as soon as I set a daily target, like my daily goal, when I had first started trading, and I learned this from my very first trading teacher, she talked about using a certain percentage of your account size. So I was like, okay, cool. My daily goal is going to be $300. That's what it is. And I didn't know how to make $300 a day at that time, at least not consistently. And so what I sometimes found myself doing is having such a tight grip or grasp on that, like, no, but I need to make $300 today, right now, that like thing of just holding on so tightly to that goal was actually then what was causing me to like differ from my plan or go against my plan or do something completely reckless and crazy. So when I can like let that go, it's like, oh, if I make that, awesome, fantastic. But if I don't, that's also okay. And where I would say maybe now gotten to the point is like, it is more important to me to stay consistent and to be disciplined and patient and focused. We've been talking about PDF, the patience, discipline, and focus. It's more important to me to keep that in check than it is to make my daily profit. Some of these, even recently, like within this past week, I think there was a day that I don't know, I did like $400 or $500. And of course, that part is still in me that's like, well, maybe you should stay a little longer and maybe trade a little more and like try, to get that extra 500 or whatever it was to get to that $1,000 daily goal. And these days, and, hopefully this will continue, is now I'm like, no, like it's actually more important to me to be consistent. So if the markets look like they're just kind of chilling out for the day and like they're not really going anywhere and they're just going to like chop around, that is like stepping into a war zone that I do not need to be in. So again, like reprioritizing in a sense, if you want to think about it that way, the discipline aspect versus the potential aspect. And again, like that P in PDF is not potential, it is not profit, it's patience. So having patience with that thing. So again, trusting yourself and then trusting the plan, your plan. When you have a plan that is so ingrained, and unfortunately, this does take time to get to that point. Like think about, for those of you that know Hubert's 8-tick reversal bond trade. He's done that. Who knows how many times he has placed that trade? Zillions, right? So many times. And he can trust in that trade setup, in that trading plan, if you will, because he has the stats to prove it. Yeah, he might lose on many of those, but overall in his multi, many times of doing that exact trade setup, it works out for the win overall so that he can trust that setup. So if any of you don't yet have a setup that you feel confident in, and not just confident like, oh, I think this is a good plan, but like actually look at the numbers, actually do the research. I did a video for the Daily Rage not too long ago about win-loss ratio. Y'all should know what yours is. You can do it on a trade by trade basis, or you can do it on a like days of the month basis. It does, I don't even care how you do it, but know so that you can see, is my stuff working or is it not? And I don't even care like what your plan is, as long as you have the plan and you can see, okay, great. If the majority of my days are green, or in my case, maybe if they're blue, clearly that is working. Clearly that is going well. So keep doing that. Trust in that win-loss ratio, in that percentage of like, okay, I think for last month, it was like I had an 80%, and this is on days, not trades. Because plenty of my trades don't work out. You guys have seen. I'll lose money all the time on trades. But if I can keep that manageable and then have some like ones that win bigger than my, smaller losses, that works out well. That turns into a green or a blue day. And if I'm winning days 80% of the time, I can trust in that process. I can trust in that plan. I can trust in what I'm doing. I wanted to talk to you guys about something called the gap. And some of you have heard me talk about this before, but it is always, always worth repeating and worth the reminder to ourselves, me included. So the gap is a concept by a guy named Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan is the founder of a program called Strategic Coach, which is a fantastic program. It's designed for entrepreneurs as a coaching program to help entrepreneurs really level up and like achieve their goals, get to those, whatever, $1 million marks or $100,000 marks or whatever it is that they're wanting to do. And it's not by any means just about the money. It's about whole life. How are your relationships? How is your health? How is your whatever? So I very much appreciate that program. I was in it for like 5 years, and it very much resonates the way that I coach people holistically. How is everything going on in your life? Anyway, Dan Sullivan created this idea called the gap. And the gap is, he found it to be true with, probably 100% of entrepreneurs that he worked with. And I would add in traders, because we do the exact same thing. The gap is when whatever we've done in the past back here behind us, like all this stuff has come forward, and here we are today in our right now current level of success, current level of understanding the markets, current level of our account balances, current level of profit, everything that we have achieved or done or understood to this point. And if you are like most of us, traders, entrepreneurs, whatever, we, for the majority, are only looking out ahead of us. We are looking at that goal. Maybe it is to make, 500 bucks. Maybe it is to make $1,000. Maybe it is to, in a year, hit $100,000, 100K, of trading revenue in a year, whatever it is. It doesn't even matter what the goal is, but we're looking at it out there in our future. And for some of us, those of us that have like big, insanely huge goals, that thing might be way out there. It's like, okay, that is quite a distance, and I'm looking to that. And sometimes what that can feel like is like, God, we still have so far to go. Or, God, like we haven't really made that much progress. And like, here we still are trying to get to that goal that we've had for 10 years or whatever, And Dan, very wisely, was like, hold on, because what you're discounting is all of that stuff back there, all of the progress that you have made to get to this point that you are at right this second. Because if you think about it, in a lot of ways, where you are right now is the achievement of a goal that you had before, maybe a year ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe 20 years ago or more, decades ago. Where we are right now is either the achievement of something back there or like hugely, hugely, hugely on that path of progress toward, something else in the future. And so Dan always says, okay, take a sec and turn around. Look back at everything that you have accomplished. Look back at what you have learned, even if it's like what is seemingly maybe the teensiest, tiniest little, quote unquote, nothing. It's not nothing. It's a step that you took some time in the past to get to where you are now. And there is so much that you can celebrate yourself for right here and now in this second. And one of the things that you can do, especially as we are at the end of 2024, is to write out in your trading journal, what have I learned this year? How have I progressed this year? How have I developed as a trader this year? And then from that, like it's not a bad thing, of course, to look ahead and to have goals and dreams and all of that. But like, okay, cool. Like, how can I then utilize, like I said, utilize that gold that we were able to mine from those uncomfortable or maybe unpleasant experiences and bring that as a shining light forward into the new year.